side in both statements. And in figure 4, it would go in this direction. So when you look at the argument, you figure out what is the conclusion, which premise is the minor premise, which premise is the major premise, put them 1, 2, 3. And then you look at the figure, and you figure out where's the middle term, you figure that out, and you have now, because you know each of these statements is either an A, E, I, O, you write that down, and then you figure out, oh, and then it's figure 3, or whatever, right? So that's how you figure out your different syllogisms that are valid. By the way, this system here, the different names that the monks gave them literally tell the monks how to go from this argument step by step back until you get to Barbara, which is considered the divine argument. So there's the medieval schools, and they give you the mnemonic names. Right? So that's fun. And Aristotle gave us that. And by the way, when you take a logic course, you start off with Aristotelian syllogism, because they still work. And when you look at computer coding, the statements that are true or false are essentially based on this whole system, as I understand it. If they get more compound, you have to break it down to those parts. So essentially, what we're looking at in the way we do logic goes all the way back to roughly 300 AD, or BC rather, when Aristotle put this all together. So we've still been passing this forward ever since, right? Now, a contemporary today might have problems with this, because notice Aristotle and his contemporaries all spoke Greek. And when we think, when you go to college, you go Greek. Why? Because Greek philosophy essentially influenced higher education. So we think we're going Greek. By the way, if that means you want to go to a toga party, that's dumb, because togas are Latin, togas are Roman, not Greek. However, food fights, I guess, though. You can have a food fight at a I guess the Greeks had food fights.
So all the pictures of those guys in Greece wearing togas, that's not true?
They didn't wear togas in Greece.
Then there's a misinformed thing on the
Togas,
cards.
in fact, not even all Romans wore togas. Togas were the official uniform of the Senate. So if you were wearing a toga, that was a specific type of clothing that represented the senators, as I understand it.
Right.
So that's just dumb. There's a lot of dumb things we do. That's one of them. Okay. So you can see how they work this out. It's a little bit on the boring side, of course, but that's because it's true. It's still true. But here's the problem I have with it. Remember when we were talking about different kinds of languages? There's 7,000 human languages? Perhaps many of the ones that are actively spoken do this, but there's a lot of languages that I'm aware of that I'm not aware can do this. So for example, if you have a language that doesn't break down into statements, how would you say that that person uttered a true or false statement when they aren't speaking a language that forms statements? And then what do you do when you're translating that person into English? Translators typically figure out how to form statements from what they said. So they're inventing statements out of what they said. So is that right to do? I don't know. Callum?
What languages actually do that? Because I know that there are some that don't actually have real statements. They're just different words that are formed together.
Well, my understanding is Chinese
Yeah.
would be one of those. Japanese. Part of it is, do they have the verb to be? Because in all of these, notice there is a connector between the left and the right side, the verb to be. And in English, we take that as kind of an arrow when you say all of these are in this set. Notice it feels like you're saying these are in this, right? Well, what happens if you have a language that doesn't have the verb to be? Now, some don't say the verb to be but mean it. So Russian, I learned, это course. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that's the course, right? And I know if I translate it in English that I stick the verb to be in there, and it's meant in Russian. But I don't understand Chinese. So if you speak Chinese and you know how they do it, please tell me, because I haven't heard. We had a professor here from Beijing University one year who gave a lecture on Aristotle and explained that Aristotle's logic doesn't work in Chinese for exactly this reason, that if Chinese people want to understand Western logic, they have to take a Western language to do it. I believe mathematics is also such a thing. So mathematics, I interpret that as, 4 times 4 equals, the equals is the verb to be, right? As I understand it. But so there's issues here in thinking that when Aristotle is giving us a basic logic of the way humans think, I'm not sure that that's true for all humans. And in fact, I've met some students who didn't get this. So I've had students, for example, one student, when I said all horses are animals, that's true, right? Yes. And I said all animals are horses. Is that true? No, right? Because there's lots of kinds of animals, not just horses, right? Well, he didn't get the difference. As far as he was concerned, I was saying horses, animals, animals, horses, horses, animals. I was just talking about horses and animals. There was no sense of what I was doing by putting the one, in an arrangement where I was saying all horses are in the set of things that are animals. And I worked hard with that person, and it didn't work.
Why do you think that is?
I have a feeling he was speaking in his mind, in his native language, and then when he was trying to think in English, he was still thinking in that language. And so I don't think he had the verb to be as part of the way he was understanding English. There's also, of course, a matter of, in that particular language that I'm thinking of, a lot fewer words. I remember another student from that same language group who she was trying to learn big words in English. She wanted to learn big words. So I said, well, get a thesaurus. Initially, she had trouble because she thought I was saying getting the saurus. So she went looking for saurus. But once we worked it out, she got a thesaurus and she looked at, like, children. She was, why are there so many words? Because there's children, neonate, infant, toddler, teenager, rugrat, all these different words for what in her language was only one word for all of them.
What language was
I'd rather not say, actually. Mostly because at the moment I can't remember the name. But no, was, one of our island communities in the South Pacific. But in any case, so the language she and he were both most familiar with, that they grew up with, had a lot fewer words, a lot fewer characteristics that we think of as Western languages. The Greek clearly influenced a whole bunch of languages, and so on, right? Samoa. They were from Samoa. So,
Aristotle was right about language.
well, at least certain languages, right? Which gets into, well, are some languages better than others? Ooh, should I ask you, is some music better than others?
And who gets to judge that?
I think better is the wrong word.
It's all an opinion. Opinionated.
More capable in certain contexts.
We could debate the moral fabric of music right there.
Well, I think as an American, you're not allowed to say it. Unless you're at one of the competitions where they have to award, the folk singer of the year, or whatever, or the rap artist of the year, or what other kinds of music. What does Taylor Swift sing? What kind of music is that?
Pop.
Pop.
Or we call it breakup music.
She just folk music.
Folk?
She is
Jewel
too,
right there.
actually. That's true.
One singer recently did an album called Cowboys, right?
Cowboy Carter.
Cowboy Carter. And didn't she get in trouble because, well, she's not supposed to sing that genre of music? Wasn't it? Did that happen?
No, I think she won an award that a lot of people were criticizing.
She won a country award for
She won a
country
She won
song.
album of the year
Yeah.
last year.
It was debatably not a country album.
Who defines country now?
Aristotle. Well, I mean, if you think about it, what's he doing? He's giving us the categories, right? This is this, this is this, this is this. Once you got them all in place, you're all done.
Right, and
So-
and you just hear like anybody debating it with him that he's wrong or on the other side of it. There's been a few.
Not that I know of.
I mean,
Uh,
it didn't
A
go very
lot
far.
a lot of people were not aware of his philosophy. And a problem for him was that he was protected by Alexander, and once Alexander died at 33, Athens rebelled against Alexander's rule, and since Aristotle was
His teacher.
so closely related to him, Aristotle fled, famously, lest Athens sin twice against philosophy, because he was thinking of, they killed Socrates, I'm not going to let them, kill me. So that's when
Well, I
he
guess
fled.
he didn't value his desires as high as Socrates did. Then.
Yeah. Okay, so next class we're going to move on to another one of his big books, and that's the Ethics, the Nicomachean Ethics. And of course, my quiz question was, how do you raise a good child?
Yep.
And of course, I'm thinking in terms of Aristotle. If you like Aristotle and you're thinking about doing a contemporary philosopher for your term paper, one of the ones who's considered an excellent Aristotelian is Martha Nussbaum. Martha Nussbaum is an Aristotelian. Also, Alistair McIntyre, who just died at 95 years old in May.
Oh yeah,
This
I
year.
like him. Have you heard him talk? You can see it, the Scottish.
Oh yeah.
parts come out
Oh
of
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
He's like in the middle. I like that. because
Yeah.
he
Oh,
does both
back in the
sides.
day, you had to read all of his books. So I read, Dependent Rational Animals, After Virtue.
Was that the quick question for today?
The quiz question for today, if I'm right, is how do you raise a good child?
Okay, according to, nope, it's just how to raise a good child. Or according to,
Yourself.
An example of being yourself.
Yeah.
Isn't it the true sentence?
Oh. Yeah, if you haven't already done the true sentence one, that would be the next one. From Jesus knocks at your door,
Uh-huh.
that's, you know,
And then true sentence.
and then true sentence, and then how do you raise a good child?
But it's only one, I thought,
One quiz question to class.
Yeah, we just missed one because of
So
holiday.
there's 2 a week. Yeah, it screwed me up the holiday
The
too.
last one is
So,
the
yeah.
true science. Before that was.
Do you have a soul? One question, so I'm not.
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah, I think that's also in my test.
But we also missed one last.
I think it might be a test question,
We
but
talked about that
Okay.
yesterday in the class. And that was my question to you, Ms. Soul. And then,
and for Aristotle to do, but it's the activity of the body. I think it's brilliant. Because, you know, Plato is thinking of some abstract thing somewhere. And we all agree, we've all grown up in a culture that feels like, you
I feel
know,
like it's
soul of
really
wit is the soul of this, the soul of your shoe. No, that's a different
It's
thing.
more like 95.
But you get the idea, there's something called a soul, but what is it? For him to say it's the activity of the body